Hi, today I'd like to talk about how Student Voice, my company, began and how I went from my first ever lecture in higher education to running an AI student text analysis platform. So, casting mind back to 2013, I was given my first ever lecture at UCL as a newly minted academic. And I was part of the really innovative integrated engineering program, and in particular the maths aspect. So I was doing a little bit of the maths and thinking about, okay, teaching first year's maths. We were teaching all of the engineers at UCL, so it was about 700 at the time, I think. And we had a set of 8 lectures, I believe, each given by a different lecturer to all 700 students about key concepts in first year engineering maths. And I was given the lecture on vectors, which is a very interesting subject for anyone who's into engineering, very important and fundamental. And because this was my first ever lecture, I poured months of prep into, into that. I went massively over the top. It was all 3D, things moving around, and it worked really well. Didn't actually give the lecture to 700 students in one go because we didn't have a lecture theatre big enough. So it was 2 lots of 350. So it'd be a 2-hour lecture and then a break, and then the same 2-hour lecture again afterwards, which as a first baptism of fire was pretty intense, but I really enjoyed it. And actually that's what led me down to sort of focusing more on my teaching rather than my discipline research. But it was a great time overall. But what I wanted to know was it any good? Right? You come off after, so at the end of that day of 4 hours of teaching maths to a lot of students, your head's all over the place. But I want to know how was I and what could I do to improve? And I want to see what other people were doing too. So I want to learn from others and try and work out, okay, how can I improve this teaching? But I needed, a student perspective, right? Of course. And at the time, there wasn't a really structured module evaluation system or survey system in place. So I put together a feedback form, asked the students to fill it in and tell me which aspects they liked about my lecture, which they didn't, which aspects of other lectures in the same series they liked. And as ever with these things, there was absolute gold in there, really useful stuff for how I could improve my teaching practice. Also some real gut punches there. Anyone who's read student comments knows there's some turbo ones, there's some great ones, and it was a start of that process of being able to process them and sort of understand. And that's where my empathy for anyone taking part in this process still comes from, because I still teach part-time at the University of Glasgow, so I'm still getting these comments, and I've got a bit of thicker skin now. But you want to get those useful things of ways your practice can improve, but you've got to be able to take some sort of quite nasty comments sometimes too. So long story short, I got all this data in, tried to improve everything. This was all manual, right? Free text comments were written by hand, right? So I had to transcribe them as best I could. Again, this is all pre LLMs and generative AI, all manual. Spent a good number of hours doing that, but I did find real patterns and real use in there. But the amount of time was crazy. I could only do it because that was my first ever teaching and everything was still ramping up. But I thought there's got to be a better way to do it. So then um, moved on there since then to use more automated platforms of running surveys, getting that data. And it's really the birth of Student Voice AI was, okay, we can collect this data with better and better methods as online surveys became more and more popular, but the analysis part wasn't changing. So again, as part of my work as a practicing lecturer, I developed ideas and thoughts and some feeling for this process, and then developed Student Voice AI, which allows institution-wide analysis of free text comments to happen as soon as you need it, right? So module evaluation, NSS, PTES, PRES, welcome surveys, all the surveys, right? So we're in a stage now where any survey that is run should be analyzed, but can be analyzed, including all the free text, hundreds of thousands of free text comments for things like module evaluation at the institutions we work with. So it's really nice to see where that's come from.